Hello book lovers, welcome to Uncommon Reader. My name is Daniela and thank you for joining me today as we are celebrating the first year of Uncommon Reader here on BookTube. It's been an amazing experience so far. So grateful for all the connections that I made and I look forward for more. So for the occasion, I decided to share with you a book tag that I had created a couple of years ago, maybe for my Italian channel, and I decided to reproduce this book tag using different prompts, of course. The tag was focused on one of my passions, which is art, and the idea is to pair famous paintings with books. So the title of a painting will inspire a book of your choice. I have tweaked a little bit this tag so to get you also involved, not only the booktubers I'm going to tag, but also you in the audience if you'd like to respond in the comments below. Let's start with the first painting, which is, I'm gonna get my glasses on right now so I can read my notes. Wanderer Above the Sea of Fog by Caspar David Friedrich. So this painter actually was part of the German Romanticists and it was made in 1818. So we are pairing this painting with a book that explores and focuses on solitude. My book of choice for this prompt is Into the Wild by Jon Krakauer. This book is actually based on a true story, the story of Christopher McCandless, who ventures alone into the Alaskan wilderness looking for himself and explores the consequences of solitude and that need of freedom. It is a very difficult book because we see that when he encounters humans, there's actually an interest to get to know them and spend time with them. So I'm not going to spoil the end for you, but there is a very important realization that McCandless does at the end of the book. And the fact that it's a true story makes it very, very moving as well. The second prompt is Cherubs by Raphael. And a curious fact, this painting is actually just a detail of the Sistine Madonna that nowadays is hanging at the Old Masters Picture Gallery of Dresden in Germany. To the Cherubs, we are pairing a book with supernatural protagonists. The book I chose for this prompt is Her Fearful Symmetry by Audrey Niffenegger. I never know how to pronounce her last name. I hope I do it correctly. So this is a very gripping book, a page turner. It tells the story of two twins that receive in inheritance a flat in London from an aunt who is the twin sister of their mother, and they never knew her existence. So there is a catch though. Before selling this apartment, since these two twins lived in USA, they had to live in the apartment for 1 year. So the two girls leave for London and spend time in this apartment and get to know the friends, the neighborhood where their aunt used to live, and a very sort of eerie atmosphere. And I'm going to leave it at that because the book is full of surprises. Of course, we're talking about supernatural, so I'm not gonna say more. Just read this book. It's very enticing and filled with lots of emotions. So let's move to the third prompt, which is Moscow by Kandinsky. We are pairing this painting with a book set in the future, and it could be a sci-fi or a dystopic. The book I've chose is The Road by Cormac McCarthy. This is a book I couldn't put down. The story of a father and a son trying to reach the shores set in USA, of course, after an apocalypse. So you can see the devastation and the huge problems they had to find something to eat and also defend themselves from total strangers, because we're talking about survival mode. So everyone was looking out for themselves. So a very, very gripping story that will not let you go until you finish the book. I really, really love this book. Prompt number 4, The Cradle by Berthe Morisot. So you might not be too familiar with Berthe Morisot. She was actually one of the few women that were part of the Impressionist movement. She had married the brother of Edouard Manet. She was in the circle, but I think she was very, very talented. I had the chance to admire one of her exhibits in Paris last year. Loved her work. The painting I chose is The Cradle, and I want to pair it with a book with a special bond between mother and her son or her daughter. The book I'm pairing it with is Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. And this is set during 1980s, and it follows two families focusing on the contrasting relationship between mother and daughter. And these relationships will also have some contrast in between those two families. A very intense family story. The 5th prompt is The Swing by Renoir. And a little tip on this swing that's depicted in the painting, it still exists at the little Montmartre Museum. If you go up in Montmartre neighborhood in Paris, you enter this little gem that is Montmartre Museum, where they have a little history of the Moulin Rouge, but they also have the studio of Suzanne Valadon, who was also one of the female that were part of the Impressionist group. The studio is intact. It's the studio and the house where she lived. And it was such an amazing experience to step in it. I had read about her in another book that was about female painters. So it was quite emotional to step into her studio. And this little Montmartre Museum has a little garden where you can actually sit on your own, read a book, or get a coffee at the bar. They have a little shop with, of course, books that focus on Impressionists and the art around that time. You can really see the swing of, I think you can't touch it, but it still exists. The Swing by Renoir got me thinking of a book that reminds you of your childhood, because it really makes me think about all the time that I spent in the swing when I was a kid. Of course, I cannot but think of Little Women by Louise May Alcott. That book was very impactful for me, being not an only child, but my sister is a special child, let's say. I still call her a child, although she's 60. She was born with a severe cerebropathy, so she's still like a little baby to me. And so I felt like that I was missing a little bit of connection with the siblings. And I think it was the same for every TV series that I was watching. I remember, I think in USA, it was called 8 is Enough. And I always imagined to be the 9th sibling of that family. I really miss that bond, although I have a very deep bond to my sister. Of course, I'm taking care of her. So I think Little Women was for me something that I cherished because also of the whole female environment. When I was growing up, I really felt that connection with my mom's sister, and my grandmothers. I really love that environment made of women, and that's probably why it made me such a hardcore feminist in a way. Of course, I loved Jo most of all the characters because of her independence and her thinking outside the box, especially during those times where women had to sort of follow certain stereotypes, and otherwise they would have been pointed out as weird, mad, or what else. So back to our prompts, and I'm gonna go with prompt number 6, and American Gothic by Wood Grant. It's actually one of the most famous images of American art in the 20th century. And with this painting, Grant really wanted to portray traditional roles of women and men in the rural Midwest. So my choice is to pair it with a book set in a rural area. And that made me immediately think of Life of Girls and Women by Alice Munro. I was so surprised by this book, which is the only novel by Alice Munro, which is famous for short stories. I read this book with my book club from my local library, and I think I was the one that loved it the most. I got really intrigued with the life of Dale Jordan, who is the protagonist of this book, as we follow her coming of age. And so she experiences relationships not only between her family but also with her schoolmates. Dell is a very curious and intelligent young woman. I enjoyed this book very, very much. It was slow, but it made sense. It's written beautifully, and it also shares a lot of insights and introspective thoughts of this young woman. So I really, really appreciate it. Let's move to prompt number 7. Self-Portrait by Artemisia Gentileschi. How could I forget her, who lived a very, very troubled childhood, but came out to be such an acclaimed painter. We are pairing the self-portrait of Artemisia with a book with a female protagonist ahead of her time, a pioneer. And this made me think of Farrukh Farrokhzad, who was a famous Iranian poetess that was quite controversial during her times. I actually dedicated my first ever Poetry Thursday to this woman who went through a lot of hardships in her decisions to be independent, in a time where there was actually even more freedom that they have now in Iran. And I don't want to start a discussion about this, because whenever there is the topic of women rights in the Middle East, I'm just going to not stop talking. And silly me, I totally forgot to talk about the book I'm pairing it with, right? Which I realized during editing. So here I am. The book of choice for this prompt is Song of a Captive Bird by Jasmine Darnitz. It tells the story of Farrukh, a bit fictionalized, of course, but very, very intense. Let's move to prompt number 8, which is a bonus. So I want you to pair your favorite artwork, painting, or other things if you don't really like paintings, and create your own prompt. And I'll be happy to respond to your unique prompt in the comments of your video when you will reproduce this tag. So I don't really have a favorite painting, but I have one that I would probably have a wallpaper made of in my bedroom, which is Almond Blossom by Vincent van Gogh, which was painted in 1890 while it was in the mental hospital at Saint Paul de Morisot. So my prompt for this painting is a book that's perfect for spring. The book I've chosen is The Mistress of Spices of Chitra Banerjee Divakaruni. So since this is going to be the book that we're going to read with my Italian channel book club, I haven't read it yet, but I really wanted to share this book because just by the cover, it gives me a sense of joy with all these colors and the spices. It just gives me this idea of spring. So the story is quite curious, and it just makes you want to read this book. Tylo is an arthritic and old but immortal woman born in some other time who travels through time and sells her magical spices to strangers. She opens up a shop in Oakland, California, and sells exotic spices for Indian curries. Her spices not only taste good, but also they enable her to help people fulfill their desires. She has a mysterious power that can only pass through her spices, and through these spices, she dispels her customers' problems and cures their troubles and ailments. So where is this shop? I'm kind of close when I'm in California. But isn't that fun? I can't wait to read this book. Well, I think that something magic really pairs well with spring coming, which is so magical if you think of it, getting ready to see flowers bloom and all things beginning again. And I look forward to continue here on BookTube with more videos coming up in the next year, and look forward to connect with you all and more BookTubers and more people subscribing and chatting with me in the comments, which is what I love the most about this experience. I will tag a few booktuber friends on the info box, and if you watching are wanting to respond to some of these prompts, please do in the comments. I'd love to hear your picks of your favorite paintings. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. I look forward to see you here back on Uncommon Reader soon. I need to do my final wrap up of what remains of my February reads. I'll see you soon. In the meantime, take care. Happy readings. Ciao.